Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jim Chapman. I'm the Green Township Supervisor. Charter Township is proud to host this panel discussion about the Gotion Battery Plant. This is not a board meeting. There's no agenda or business to be conducted. These are your questions presented to a panel of people experienced in the fields in question. The purpose of tonight's panel is to provide you with answers. Since multiple questions on the same subjects have been asked, we will try to cover all the issues by utilizing a representative sample of the 150 plus questions without being repetitive. We're targeting this to be about an hour and a half, but we will go to 2 hours if that's what's needed. All questions all questions submitted have been posted verbatim on our website, and we intend to have written answers for all those questions available in the next couple weeks. The residents of Green Township face a change in our township. We would like to hear some straight answers on our questions. Those from the outside of our township that would like to listen in are more than welcome. We're here to listen to questions, not me. So at this point, let me introduce tonight's moderator. Dean Mike Staley of the Engineering Technology Program at Ferris has graciously offered to serve at that. So without any further ado, turn it over to Dean Staley.
Thank you. I think we're gonna, are we gonna go around the room and introduce ourselves or just start out? Yeah, why don't we introduce ourselves? John, do you wanna go?
I'm John Fribley, and I am a retired industrial pollution prevention coordinator.
Thank you. Chuck?
Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Thalen. I'm Vice President of Gotion North America Manufacturing. Nice to speak with you.
Patrick?
Hi, I'm Patrick Teed, Community Affairs Manager for Consumers Energy.
Randy?
Hi, everybody. Randy Thalen, President and CEO of The Right Place, which is an economic development organization serving Greater Grand Rapids, and we have a partnership with Mecosta County Development Corporation. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Jeremy Webb, I'm the Managing Director of the Business Development Projects team with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation.
And Kevin is having some technical difficulties, so we'll leave that for now.
Dean, we also have Tim Nessel in by phone.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Tim Nessel with Superintendent Manager of Mecosta County Road Commission.
Okay, thank you. So those are our panelists tonight. And Chuck, do you want to open up with a few words?
Yes, thank you so much. I think I sent over a presentation. Can we put slide 1 on the screen? There we go. Thank you very much. My intention is just to show you a brief background of the company before we get to the questions and answers, and then also talk to the 3 main topics that we're discussing tonight. So next slide, please. If you're unfamiliar with the company, is a slide coming up? Next slide.
Can you see? No.
Slide 2, please.
It's up on our screen, and we're trying to get it up on the broadcast screen.
Okay.
Coming up.
Well, I'll start to speak to it. You'll see the picture in a second. So Gotion is a multinational corporation. We were founded in China in 2005, and then the company went from private to public in 2015. Ironically, at the same time, we incorporated in North America out of Fremont, Fremont, California, and then recently, 2016 or 17, then also put an R&D facility in Ohio. Those 2 facilities employ a total of roughly 70 people right now. We support our region just like the other regions. So we are in Germany. Our European headquarters is in Göttingen, Germany. We're also in Vietnam and Thailand, and obviously in China. We also have R&D facilities in Singapore, Japan, and some other locations. So as you can see, maybe sooner or later from the picture, we've expanded from just R&D facilities because we do see ourselves as an innovation company into manufacturing locations. The newest manufacturing locations are the United States. So we launched Europe a year ago, June. We also went public, by the way, out of the Swiss Stock Exchange in July of 2022. And slide before that, please. Oh, no, this is okay. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. So yeah, in 2022, what we incorporated out of Swiss Stock Exchange also. So we're not only a multinational company, we're traded on 2 different stock exchanges, one in Shanghai, one in Switzerland. So our footprint that we're planning for Michigan specifically is to expand in our manufacturing global footprint and bring in about a $2.3 billion investment. We have quoted to MEDC, Jeremy, that we will have 2,350 jobs by roughly 2030. Our start of construction for this facility is planned for Q2 of 2023. However, it'll be late Q2, so really beginning of Q3. So you can target roughly July of this year. Start of production after a 2-year construction cycle and installing equipment into that building will be 2025. This facility then will also launch simultaneously with a second facility in the United States. The location I cannot yet disclose because we're still under negotiation for finalizing that purchase. And that will be the primary user of the product coming out of Big Rapids. So they will be making the battery cells. Big Rapids will be making the battery materials for anode cathodes specifically. The original, the kick-on for that second facility is roughly 30 gigawatt hour. We're going to target 40 gigawatt hour. However, that takes a lot of space and effort. So that is what we plan to do in North America. That second plant will ship its product to North American customers throughout the United States. So that kind of gives you an idea of what the company looks like. Where do our products go? Please go to the previous slide. Our products go into multiple different segments. The previous one, please. Slide 2. So passenger vehicles, cars, trucks, vans, commercial vehicles, e-buses. As a matter of fact, we had the very first e-bus route in the Netherlands. Special vehicles, delivery vehicles. We're currently supplying to a North America customer for their delivery vans. Light vehicles. This is more of a Asia thing. This is really a what's called a plug and play or battery exchange model, where you can just take your expired battery, replace it in the scooter, and they keep on going. And last but not least, energy storage and energy solutions. What that is large containers. You can see the picture. Basically, it's a big box full of battery cells and cooling systems and fire suppression in case that ever happens. So we support mainly our customers today in North America, roughly a 60-40 split between EV and ESS, and I expect that to continue. Slide 4, please. Why choose Big Rapids? This question comes up with every conversation. So this is kind of a solution funnel, the way I've depicted this. It's a problem-solving technique we use in engineering. We have 44 potential greenfield sites. What I didn't list here is we also looked at around a dozen brownfields. The brownfield didn't lend itself to this product because most brownfield buildings are too short. We need roughly 70 feet in height. So we were looking at greenfield sites to build a new taller building. We looked at multiple different things of all those sites. You can see all the characteristics are on the perimeter, and then that narrowed down to 14 potential sites. I personally visited each site and spoke with the local authorities, the industrial supply. I spoke with the utility companies and really narrowed that down to 3 very, very capable potential sites. When you look at the overall final solution for Big Rapids, what were the key enablers? And that was really the top-notch capability of Ferris State, not only to produce 4-year bachelor's and master's degrees and doctorate degrees, but also to produce 6-month, 1-year, 2-year types of education certificates, which feeds directly into our workforce. Michigan Works will be our partner for all recruiting. We will be recruiting out of Michigan first, specifically out of the Big Rapids area first, then Michigan, then globally, or excuse me, nationally. So the recruiting effort will have a priority. I plan to put a 2-week recruiting priority on any Big Rapids local applicants, and then we'll look outside from there. And last but not least, consumers energy. One of the key characteristics of our company is we consider ourselves very green and environmentally friendly. And that means that we want sustainable energy available. So when we're buying our energy from Consumers Electric, we will be buying sustainable energy, 100% renewable, to satisfy not only our needs, but also a lot of our customers demand a very small carbon footprint for this type of product, as you can imagine. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the 3 rumors that are going around. I think if we look at all the questions tonight, they'll be really categorized in these 3 points. Number 1, regards to communism scare. Gotion Inc. is a wholly owned subsidiary of Gotion High Tech. I think I've already said that many times. I've been in the automotive industry for about 38 years and Gotion for a little over 3.25 years. And up till October 22nd, I held the position of responsible for all of North America operations. This put me in weekly discussions with not only our local leaders, but also global leaders. And I can tell you that never in my time with this company did I ever hear one of the people in the North America office discuss politics or party alignments. I heard absolutely nothing about being a right-wing Republican, a Democrat, a radical socialist, communist, nothing. People don't talk in this company. Never did I hear any other leader from another location reference a pro-communist party position. And while traveling with our CEO and Chairman Lee for about 6 weeks last year, a very extensive travel schedule in the summer, I never heard him once reference a communism ideal or directive. Never, not once. So is the Communist Party penetrated this company? No. Do we have articles of incorporation that require a specific paragraph or you don't do business in the country of China? Yes, but it is not a corporate culture. So despite what any current politician might say, there is no communist plot within Gotion to make Big Rapids a center to spread communism. There's multiple claims that Gotion will bring communism to Big Rapids and will bring anywhere from 300, I even saw 11,000 Chinese nationals to run the plant. And this is totally false. So what will happen is we will bring in roughly 20 to 50 people to help with the training. I myself will be the plant manager. I'm slated to be plant manager, and I can assure you I am not a communist. I'll begin locally hiring employees. As soon as our contracts are finished, I will hire key personnel to travel to our plants around the world for training. And as I said, we will prioritize local hires. We will not be bringing over 11,000 people to run this plant from another country. That does not work. More than 2 months ago, we also began the process to voluntarily file our own self-funded CFIUS declaration. CFIUS stands for Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States. That declaration was, we tried to submit that last Friday. The federal government asked for additional information about the property owners and their tax ID numbers for each piece of property. So that is now concluded, and I've been told that will be entered into the federal government tomorrow. So we will abide by their findings. It takes roughly 30 to 45 days to review that CFIUS submission, and after that, we will obey their conclusions and comply with their findings and declarations. Just a note, I don't know if everybody realizes this, but there's already 52 Chinese companies in Michigan doing business. These international companies started in China, but they're all around the world. And I've never heard of a single one of them ever threatening our way of life. Point number 2, environmental concerns. I've heard and read dozens of speculation topics and scare tactics really designed to make people believe that Gotion will destroy the environment. Nothing could be further from the truth. We will pump, there's one I like, we will pump all the water out of the water table and suck the water, drying up the wells surrounding the local homes. The truth is, our water consumption will be roughly 715,000 gallons per day. That is 50% of the pump capacity that's at the current wells on the Big Rapids Township property. There are 2 wells. We only need 1. I assume, and I'm going to be asking to look at the study that Big Rapids Township conducted to conclude that those wells were safe for the environment. So we're continuing to look at that. Here's another one of my favorites. Here's Gotion will have large chemical ponds open to the air and will pollute the water source in Muskegon River. Storing these very, very expensive materials out in open air in a contaminated pond would cost us millions and millions in scrap material. This claim is not real. It is not going to happen. Gotion will be creating a special waste and toxic waste that will be pumped in the grounds and rivers. The water that we use never even comes in contact with the materials that we process. If you get these materials wet, you destroy the material. So no, we will not be pumping materials or minerals or chemicals into the water. I see also claims of air emissions. I see claims of inevitable fire from the batteries that are being stored here. Just a reminder, there are no batteries in this location. This is a battery material facility, not a battery facility, and on and on. So but at the end of the day, none of these claims are true. They don't have any basis in fact whatsoever. So we will provide the truth to all these topics tonight. And lastly, how will Gotion plant change our way of life and our very beloved lazy town? I live here too, if everybody doesn't know that. I joined Jim Chapman in a 1.5 hour radio show last March 28th. We were interviewed by 3 just self-described community leaders, each of which have been longtime small business people, having employed many people in the community over the last 30 years. They were all in their mid-60s, most of them retired, and clearly have no intention or desire to work in this manufacturing plant. They definitely have opposing views to what it should be. They're very happy with the status quo, and if we were to stop this project, they would be happy, but it would result in the young people of the area that are not 65 years old and still work on their career, they would be denied a chance at financial stability. And I don't agree with that position. One person on the team stated their family owns and operates a 2,000-acre farm in the area. I don't know about you, but my quick math at 5,000 per tillable acre, that's about $10 million of farm ownership in one of the 10 poorest counties of the state. I'll be very blunt. Another person stated that they have built a beautiful horse farm where they live because they love the agriculture property around them. That person built that farm knowing that 20 years ago, the property across the street was zoned industrial. So putting the dream farm next to a known industrial and commercial zone property in that road frontage was their choice. I'm sorry they feel this way, but they definitely don't want to look at an ugly building across the street from the horse farm. And lastly, the third person posing questions was very pragmatic. He tried to promote the opinion that the company will somehow bring communism to America. As a retired psychologist, he used his skills that he has honed over the years when he told listeners to pull out pictures of their dearly departed and their loved heroes that served in the American military. It strongly painted a picture that any person that supports this project is un-American. I don't agree with that position. So lastly, I would say, I wonder if any of these critics use an iPhone to communicate with. An iPhone that's made in China. Or maybe they participate in this online rally today with an HP or Dell computer that was also made in China. Maybe even one of them is now, as we speak, tearing out the dishwasher, the washer, the dryer, and the furnace out of their house because they have controllers and motors that are mostly Chinese made. The fact is, we already live in a global industry. And to bring a Chinese manufacturing or multinational manufacturing site into North America is the onshoring that our past president really promoted for us to do. So I support that. Very last point here. I've been watching Mecosta County, and this is a personal perspective. It has nothing to do with my company. It has nothing to do with the people on this board, but I just want to make this statement. People ask why I chose Big Rapids. And yes, I used the data to support and to encourage my superiors to put this facility here. But why did I choose Big Rapids? I chose it so I can help 2,000 total strangers. I want them to earn a good wage for an honest day's work. And I want them to gain financial stability for their children. My parents taught me a long time ago to help those in need, even if you don't know who they are. I believe that onshoring this company into Big Rapids will bring with it a $106 million yearly payroll for the people in this county. And that, my friends, is the best thing I can think of to do to help 2,000 total strangers. So that's why I've led this charge. Over the past 4 months, we've been force-fed a big fear sandwich, and which is made by some of the things that aren't, rooted in fact or anything else. I just want to use a quote. I won't say where I got this quote from, but I love this quote. Fear is an incompetent teacher. And with that, let's go ahead and please begin the question and answer portion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. We have a number of questions to get through tonight. We're going to try to get the questions answered in 2 to 3 minutes each, so we can make progress through all of our questions. The first 8 questions come from the environmental category. And Chuck, the first question goes to you. What country or state will the lithium, cobalt, nickel, and any other compounds or chemicals used in the factory come from? And where will they enter the state of Michigan? And what will the transportation mode coming into Michigan be? Oh, Chuck, I think you're muted.
Thank you. I just returned from the International Battery Conference, which is down in Orlando, Florida. Was down there for a little over a week. And one of the things that we learn, and one of the things I've read, is in the United States, if we want to make lithium-ion batteries to the scale that is being demanded by the federal government, we currently have about 7% of the planned capacity requirements here in the US, which means 93% of all materials have to come from offshore. Okay, that's a big number. I don't see any localized production of some of these elements anytime soon, because it takes roughly 5 years to put it in a mine. Then you have to have the refineries with the mine. So that takes about 5 years. It also takes many months and years to get a permit to do so. So this question is very valid. A lot of this stuff doesn't come from our states. Okay, so we are looking at roughly 2 major components that go into these batteries that we'll be producing anode and cathode for. Those 2 main products are the cathode and the anode. The cathode is really the active part. That's what houses the lithium that you all hear about. And that lithium iron phosphate is deposited on that cathode side. Lithium comes from a few different locations in the world. Some of them are undesirable. So what we did is we secured a desirable location in Argentina, the north of Argentina, within what they call the lithium triangle. If people don't know, there's a bunch of salt flats about 11, 12,000 feet up in the air inside some mountains. When the volcanoes erupted many, many years ago, it deposited all these lithium deposits in the salt flats that are there. So our plan is to bring that out of Argentina, which is not an objectionable location. As far as the anode, the key component of that is graphite. Graphite is very locally available. As a matter of fact, it's in the working end of every number 2 pencil that we give our children to go to school with. That's graphite. Yes, it's more highly refined. There's more to it than that. I kind of dumbed it down a little bit, but the graphite is key. There are some other industry secret materials that go into there, but those are the 2 main materials by volume that will be used for this process. So that's where they will come from. There's concern about cobalt and manganese coming in the area. At this time, we are not planning to make a nickel, cobalt, manganese style battery. Those batteries are desirable by some, but the lithium ferrous phosphate battery that we support is the most stable, maybe not as energy dense, but the most stable battery that can be made. So that is what we're focusing on. So for the short term, some of this lithium will come from Gotion owned mines that exist currently in China, just because it will take some time to get Argentina ramped up. But as soon as Argentina is ramped up, that will supply all non-Asia entities with the lithium, because there's so much there. There's 100 years worth of it there. So that's where we're going to be pulling a lot of material from.
Okay. The next question is about water, and this goes to both John and Chuck. How much groundwater will the plant consume? How will it be processed? And are there any biohazards, chemicals in the discarded water, the effluent?
I'll speak to the amount of water and what might be in it, and then I'll let John speak if that's okay. So the water consumption, as I mentioned, is 715,000 gallons per day. That's to start up. Our intention is to recycle as much of that as possible. That is water that's mainly used in the cooling process of the manufacturing. When I say cooling, it doesn't directly see the material. It goes through heat exchanging materials to pull heat into the product and then take heat back out of the process. Okay, so this water is highly recyclable, and it does not come out of the process with a bunch of contaminants. This can easily be supplied by one of the two wells, as I already mentioned. I was told that the well capacity per well, there's 2 wells currently in Big Rapids Township, and they are sized at 720,000 gallons per day. So we would be utilizing one of these wells. Again, I'm going to be looking forward to the study that drove the permit for those wells. So from a company standpoint, that's what we're looking at. So I'll turn it over to John now.
Yeah, and John, the second part of that question really had to do with how will the draw of that amount of water affect the home wells in the area?
Well, I don't believe it would affect the home wells at all because of the study that Big Rapids Township would have done at the time they put those wells in. So I'm not really that familiar on the wells and the water drawdown. I see the other part of the question is what might be in and where the water is going to go. And they're going to be discharging to the Big Rapids wastewater treatment plant, which would be called publicly owned treatment works as far as the state and EPA is concerned. And they have their own ordinances as far as heavy metals and contaminants that Gotion would have to meet those ordinances. Most of the heavy metals that may possibly be in anything coming from the plant is listed in the ordinance in like parts per billion. So it's very minute that they're able to discharge. The city of Big Rapids should be overseeing that. And then the city has an industrial pretreatment coordinator that would be sampling and doing all that, writing a discharge permit when the factory gets open. And that is all overseen by Michigan Eagle, and they are overseen by the EPA with all the regulations. So as far as any pollution goes, the regulations are there, and they are so tight that there should be absolutely no concern of any pollution passing through the treatment plant and going into the Muskegon River.
Keeping with
That's
the
all I have.
water questions, the next question, Chuck and John, if you want to jump into this one as well. What assurances can you give that the groundwater intrusion or surface water discharge from the manufacturing activities will not compromise the aquifer or the Muskegon River?
I'll say what I know, but clearly John's more in depth on this. As we go through our permit processes, you have to go through water permit, you have to air permit, you have to go through site preparation, groundworks, and so on. So all of our declarations for any kind of contaminants will be addressed at that point. If, again, as I mentioned, the process that uses the cooling water does not get contaminants introduced. The water that will be mainly discharged into the sewer is going to be any water that you would see out of a common home, out of your bathroom, out of your kitchen, your shower. And so if I remember correctly, the assumption is 33 gallons per person per day for those types of operations. There will also be a secondary water treatment plant, so pre-treatment plant directly on our facility. And we will pre-treat that water to make sure it's of a proper pH and no contaminants or no enes, no benzene, no toluene, that kind of stuff. The goal is also to use that pre-treated water back into our system to cool off our machinery. And if we're happy enough to use our water to make sure our machinery doesn't go bad, it's going to meet the requirements. So maybe I'll turn the rest over to John, but we do have a pre-treatment station already budgeted on site.
John?
Okay, like I say, if they will be required to pre-treat and meet any of the city and federal state ordinances on anything that would be in the water as far as the amounts, which most of them are parts per billion. There's a few of the more hazardous that are actually listed in parts per trillion. And that's all overseen, like I say, by the city, the state, and the EPA. So the reason for that is anything discharged to the sewer works will not pass through and go into the Muskegon River.
Okay, good.
That's all I got there.
The next question is more of a general question, Chuck. It's asking what precautions are going to be taken with the daily operations to protect water, soil, and air.
When we submit our permits, one of those categories that we have to submit to is continuing conformance. So how do we measure any of our outputs, any of our emissions, and make sure that gets reported on a regular basis as defined by local authorities? Just so happens my closest friend in the world works for the Air Quality Department of the State of Michigan. So I've talked to him a lot about this. I understand how he does his site evaluations and how often he has to submit to the EPA. And it's a lot. So I know that we're going to have continuing conformance, and we will also, by the way, have our own environmental health and safety team of experts on site. So we will be hiring this team very quickly to make sure that not only the continuing conformance is adhered to, but also during the design phase and when we're actually designing buildings before any construction even starts, their technical expertise will be involved in those designs.
The next question is to Chuck and Randy. Was there a state of Michigan environmental impact study done, and what was the conclusion regarding building the plant at this location?
I'm already off mute, so I'll just keep on going. Randy can fill in any blanks. There is not one single overreaching environmental study that happens for something like this. You have to meet several different legs of the stool to get authorization, as I mentioned, air quality, water quality, stormwater detention. These types of things are all necessary requirements. So we are already in parallel paths putting together our designs to make sure that any impacts to air, water, or groundwater or water runoff are minimized. So as was mentioned by John, these works are required. We will not get a permit without one. Just for example, for the air quality permit, we have to declare what kind of air emissions we're going to use and what type of treatment solutions we're going to have. And then that is authorized or not authorized. And then they put that in one of two major classifications as a minor or major. Major is very self-explanatory. It means you've got a problem and you have to go fix your problem before you get a permit. The minor is what we plan to fall within. By our calculations, we're well within a minor air classification, so it should not be an issue. But clearly, we will submit all of our plans as to how we do that.
Yeah, Mike, I would just add there's been talk of that in environmental impact study. There hasn't been a formal impact study. That is a collection of the application permits that Chuck and the team will be supplying. So that will be compiled at that point. We did do some due diligence looking at other battery related facilities across the state of Michigan, 2 in Holland, 1 in the Livonia area, and 1 in the Midland area, just to ascertain what their history has been, and found none in terms of environmental issues. So we've done a little bit of background digging there.
Good. And this is kind of a follow-on question. We talked about what those criteria are. This next question asks, how will the contamination be measured and monitored, both air, water, and soil, by Gotion and or the EPA? And this question is to Chuck and John.
I think that's fairly redundant what we just said, but I'll give you some more answer. Maybe this will help. When we put together a manufacturing process, and this is every manufacturing and automotive, I hope in other industries as well, we go through what's called a failure mode effects analysis. So it's called a FEMA for short. So for the plant, it will be a process failure mode effects analysis. That's where we go through every single possible conceivable failure mode of the plant, whether it's a process that breaks down or whether it's a piece of equipment that wears out, and what is the net effect and what is the risk to everybody, the community, the company, and so on. When you look at the FEMA, there are 3 criteria you look at. You get a risk priority number that's calculated by what is the expected occurrence, how often could it happen, what's the severity of the failure mode, and then what's the detectability that you have a failure mode. So we use this to define what are the risks that we have to pay attention to. You multiply those 3 factors together, you come up with what's called the risk priority number, an RPN, and then anything over a quantity of 40 has to be addressed. So for example, a severity, if a material were to leak into the groundwater, that's a severity of 10 automatically. So that means you have to be able to detect it. You have to know that there's very low occurrence, or you have to address and put in secondary redundant systems, primary and secondary redundant systems. So we're very, very judicious on how you put together this process, FEMA. Hopefully that helps understand a little bit as to how we're managing this stuff. And if there is any kind of cleanup, we have our own EHS team on site. So if we have somebody knocks over a pallet of material, that cleanup is done immediately within the plant. We will also have a material safety data sheet that is submitted to the local authorities. So whether it be fire or any first responder, what materials are in the plant that should be considered, and more so to that, where are they located? Okay, so if there is any kind of issue that arises because of a failure mode, everybody should be very well versed as to where it's coming from. Lastly on that, if there is happen to be a thermal event, we have our own fire suppression system, and we have to have a secondary fire suppression. So if for some reason we run out of water, the pump quits working, we will have a 500,000 gallon water tank next to the facility that will be a secondary fire suppression just in case.
That detail is very helpful. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move to the next category, which is questions regarding China and the origin of the company. And this first question goes to you, Chuck. There are claims that Gotion is owned and controlled by the Communist Party, and they will use the community resources to spy on U.S. citizens. What is the truth regarding this topic?
Well, I guess I should have saved my opening remarks for this question, shouldn't I?
I'm gonna just put it in here just in case those that are watching didn't hear all of the introductory statement.
Okay.
But I think it's
I'll
worth
repeat
repeating.
Yeah. I'll repeat it. So again, I've been in the industry for 38 years. I've been at Gotion for a little over 3¼ years. I was responsible for all operations in North America, which means I interfaced with all of our locations as well as all of our global locations. We have leadership meetings for collaboration to make sure we're all singing out of the same hymnal. And never in my time with this company have I ever heard anybody mention anything about a party affiliation, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Communist, Socialist, whatever. People don't talk about it here. I also traveled for 6 weeks with our CEO and Chairman Lee that people are bringing into question. I can tell you from my experience with him, he's never, ever made a reference to a communist ideal or directive. As a matter of fact, he has my trust. I think he's an honest man. And when I've discussed things with him and he's told me that I'm going to make a change based on your input, he respects my input and he makes those changes. So he doesn't just shrug me off as not being a member or whatever. He takes my input very, very seriously. So that relationship is there. But no, I've never seen or heard of any kind of push to bring some underground communist plot into Big Rapids. As far as that goes, as I mentioned, this rumor about 300 to 11,000 multinationals coming in and overrunning the city is flat out false. This will not happen. We will bring 20 to 50 people to help with our process setup, roughly 12 months worth, and then they will go home. This plant will be run by Michiganders, I hope. I will be the first one. And then whoever succeeds me, hopefully they're Michigander. If not, they'll be an American. You can't, if anybody's ever worked in a manufacturing environment, you can't lead the team if you don't understand their culture. So to have a Chinese leader in that position makes no sense whatsoever. You will never get the production operational efficiency that you will get from a local leader. And by the way, I am not a communist.
Jim, I'm gonna move to the local concerns questions, and this question goes to you, Jim. Will Green Township request a review from the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States, like Big Rapids Township did because Gotion backed out after being asked that question? And if the answer is no, why not?
Okay. Now, whether or not that was the reason that Gotion changed their mind on Big Rapids Township's industrial park is a separate issue. But as to the CFIUS, quite honestly, it doesn't make much sense for our township to do it. Big Rapids Township's monthly meeting last night, as I understand it, their attorney advised them in regards to their application that and I'm paraphrasing, you don't have enough money in your budget to afford what it would cost to apply. I do know that our congressman has already met and spoken to Treasury Secretary Yellen requesting that a review be done on all the battery plants in the state of Michigan. I have been led to believe, and I believe Mr. Thalen mentioned already tonight, that just to clear the air, Gotion has applied themselves just to get that cleared. So with both our congressman and with the Gotion already starting it, Big Rapids Township having the option and backing out, giving the cost that apparently it would run to do that, it doesn't make any sense. So no, Green Township will not be asking for a CFIUS review.
Let me add a couple words for those that did maybe hear earlier. Over the last roughly 2.5 months, we've been putting together our voluntary self-declaration. This is a very large document. I think it has 12 or 13 sections, and each section has multiple bullet points. They request every piece of information possible about the area, about the property owners, about the leaders of the company, and so on. So we had an initial submission last Friday. We were told to bring more detail into it about the current property owners, their tax ID numbers, and so on, because they know the federal government wants to know exactly what the properties are. So that was completed today. I'm told the declaration will happen tomorrow. Again, we will fund it ourselves. We will not saddle any township with this. And if nothing else, will be done by Friday. Okay, it takes 30 to 45 days to get a result.
Okay, thank you. Jim, this next question is for you. Does anyone on the board or associated with the board stand to profit directly from this deal, land sales and other such things?
The answer to that is yes. This is a small community and we have a lot of cross interests coming in. There is one piece of property within the Renaissance zone that belongs to a family that includes one of our board members. But in the interest of transparency, that was announced clearly when the resolution vote took place. That was made very clear to everyone. And while it's complicated for a charter township, that member abstained from any voting. That member has not made any action or made any statement as part of our board that would in any way advance his own personal finances. So it is there, but he's done everything himself to make sure that any appearances of impropriety are negated.
Jim, there's another question here asking, will there be an opportunity for public comments? Just a concern that the voices are being heard.
There's always opportunities in the right format. We had folks come in last month to our board meeting like they do every month. There were more than normal. But this is not a board meeting. There's no agenda. There's no business to be conducted. This is a panel discussion of subject matter experts addressing people's questions. It is hosted by Green Charter Township, but it is not a Green Charter Township action. I know people are looking forward to going to Williams Auditorium and making their voices heard and waving their signs. And there's a time and a place for that. They're out in front of Williams Auditorium right now. I understand there are those that intend to protest here and there are those that intend to protest in front of my house. Welcome to America. But this is not the format. We needed to keep this in the format that everybody is seeing, where folks can sit in the comfort of their home, hear a conversation and get the answers that they're seeking and not just the rumors and fear mongering that social media have created. So this is not the format, but there are formats for public speaking. We'd be happy to see that happen in the proper time.
Okay, Jim, the next question is for you again. You're in the hot seat, Jim. This question is, why were the citizens not allowed to vote on something of this magnitude that impacts so many individuals?
I think there's a bit of confusion here. Big Rapids Township chose within their format to consider a referendum vote. But what was being voted on? The industrial park was a property of Big Rapids Charter Township. And so then there's a legitimate question on whether or not that the sale of that township property should be subject to a referendum. There is no publicly owned property in Green Township this involves. These are all privately owned. Okay. I'm sorry, but that's not our way of running a country, that the community gets to get together and decide when one person can sell the land to another. The city of Big Rapids did not have a referendum to decide whether that property could be sold to Hayworth. Agreed City did not have a referendum to decide whether or not that property could be sold to Yoplait. There is no legal grounds to address the issue of the sale of that property, and so there's not a referendum to run.
Jim, the next question goes to you again. This question is that a local community member is claiming that all the property is zoned for agriculture and that it is being rezoned to industrial. How many acres are being purchased that's currently zoned agriculture or industrial?
There are roughly 420 acres in the current Renaissance zone, if my calculations are correct. And of those 420, 251 of them are already zoned already zoned industrial. There is within that one piece that has, at the request of the property owner, been zoned industrial back to agricultural a few years ago. But this property was all zoned industrial 20 years ago in cooperation with Big Rapids Charter Township when they formed their industrial park. Much of those supervisors at that time planned it that way and worked together and cooperated. So of the 420 acres, there's 251 that are zoned industrial. All the property that would be any zoning changes would be under the ownership of Gotion. There is no one in Green Township who is being forced to have their zoning changed.
The next question is the township asking to rezone any property not part of the Gotion project to industrial?
There is no plans at this time to change any zoning on anything other than what is part of the Gotion project.
Okay. Jim, the next question is for you. We're on a roll.
Okay.
Will this facility be required to meet all local, state, and federal construction, environmental, and operational regulations?
I am the township supervisor of a rural little township that is 6 miles by 6 miles. I don't get the option of telling Lansing to go away. We don't care what you think. There are federal, there are state, there are county standards. All those standards will be met. There are no variances applied for, and there are no variances expected. The states and federal standards are the standards and will be enforced.
Next question is what fire service will be responsible to respond to any incident at the facility?
What fire department? Primary response will be the city of Big Rapids. We do and have for many, many years contracted with the fire division of the Big Rapids Department of Public Safety and had excellent service from them. But I will note that while, excuse me, while City of Big Rapids is the contracted fire response, there is within Mecosta County a auto aid system. Anything of any substance such as smoke or flame showing, our emergency dispatch will automatically send, in this case, Big Rapids Township to assist. At the option of the dispatcher or at the option of the fire captain for the city of Big Rapids, I can tell you something like this, they would automatically activate the mutual aid agreement and we would see the city of Reed City coming down. From there, the decision would be part of the fire captain, and you are looking at Hersey, Lily Township, Big Prairie, Mecosta Township, Morton Township. To keep right on going, if you don't mind, depending on the size, we are looking at Everett aerial if needed, Cadillac's aerial if needed, Morton, Cedar Springs, along with the cities, and the projects and projects and projects, options continue to grow. So there is a system in place to see that sufficient manpower. If you give me just a second, let me explain. I can tell you right now, if a page went out for that, and for those that aren't aware of it, I have for 30 years been a firefighter in this community. I am a captain with Big Rapids Township Fire Department. If this had an incident at it, dispatch is going to automatically send the city. They're going to automatically send township. You will have 20 plus firefighters there, probably inside of 10 minutes. Depending on what is called for, we can have 50 plus on scene in 20 minutes. Within a half hour, we could have 100 either there or on the way. And regional departments coming out of Muskegon, Grand Rapids, we have agreements with those. The resources grow and grow and grow. There is and always has been a system in place for major occurrences, and this is just one more challenge within those parameters.
This is kind of a follow-on question, but the question here is Big Rapids Fire Department currently responsible for other manufacturing facilities? And have they completed pre-planning or training for those facilities?
Oh, absolutely.
Are they capable?
Absolutely. That is a priority for any fire department, the city, the township, Reed City, any of these people. They analyze where the challenges are, potential challenges, and they pre-plan to respond to them. The city of Big Rapids has a series of pre-plan in place for all those diverse factories and so on. You look over in the industrial park and on the east side of the city. To that, you add that city provides coverage into Green Township. There are challenges there, whether it is liquid propane storage or other things. They provide 2 other townships, I believe, over and above us. So those are all standard operating procedures to be ready for anything that could happen.
This last question, Chuck, goes to you. It's still with the fire theme. The question is, it's been said that you will have a response team in the plant. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that response team looks like? Will it be a standalone working for the company? Will they work in partnership with the fire department? How does that work?
Yeah, so your typical response team for a facility like this is multiple faceted. First one is overall the facility will be fenced because we have a lot of very valuable product in here that if somebody wanted to commit an act of terror, we would be a target. So we will have security force to make sure that we keep it safe. Number 2, we will have many people that are on staff that are EHS specific experts. Then they will recruit many people that will have a radio at their desk. If there is an issue, the company I just came from, somebody had a heart event while at work, and they had 10 people at their desk immediately, all well trained in how to handle those types of situations. And for us, fire and any kind of containment activities will also be a priority. So we will have our own fire reduction technique and fire suppression. As I mentioned, you have a primary and a secondary system. That will all be, if an event did happen, when that's activated, we automatically contact the township and let them know, hey, we've got something going on here, and give them an assessment of where it is in the plant, what kind of materials might be located in that area, how many people might be in that area, and so on. Give them as much heads up as we can for their response. I don't expect right now, we haven't put it together. I don't think we'll have our own firefighters, if you will, but we will have our experts on staff that understand how to handle a fire.
Thanks. We're going to move into the next category.
Maybe one last, I'm sorry to cut you off, but one last category is if there is an event where we have what's called a non-conforming material that might be suspect for any reason, we will have a primary containment area, which would be what's called lockout tagout. So you take any non-conforming material, you put it in a shed out back, for lack of a better term, to make sure no people get into it, so they can't accidentally create an issue. That's another key consideration. So containment areas are very critical to this type of product. Even though we're using lithium phosphates, as remind people, lithium is fairly unstable. A lithium phosphate is not. It's very stable. So the materials we're using are not something that you hear of and see on TV where, oh my gosh, a battery blew up and the car went crazy. We're not making batteries, we're making materials. The materials we're using are the safest in the industry.
Okay. We're going to move to local safety, road, and road improvement questions. The first question here, Tim, goes to you. Provide a summary of road improvements that Gotion or its agents, engineers have identified as being necessary to develop this project and have been planned or in progress with Mecosta County Road Commission or the Michigan Department of Transportation, and if there's any cost data.
The two roads under the Mecosta County Road Commission's jurisdiction would be 220th and 18 Mile. Currently, the current idea for those two roads is to widen both of them, 3 lanes on 220th, I believe, and add shoulders to 18 Mile and upgrade them to a Class A status. And then there will need to be some bridge work on the structure just south of 19 Mile at 220th. That will have to be widened also. Again, those are preliminary ideas. We have not got any design plans. We have not hired a design engineer yet, as there is no funding in place for any of this at this current time. I believe it's being worked on. From these preliminary discussions, that the estimated cost data that we've come up with for our two roads would be $4.1 million about.
Okay, the next question is Tim, Randy, and Chuck. Please elaborate on how Gotion will work with local officials to design the facility access in a way that will not overburden traffic patterns in the proposed location.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and start on that, and then we can let the experts speak. But ironically, this is also the reason why we're locating in Green Township and not targeting Big Rapids Township. When you look at the way that we have to put the buildings on site to minimize any kind of encumbrance to any wetlands or anything else, the buildings are very specifically placed. These buildings are roughly 70 feet tall, so they're a little tall. They're too tall to go on the Big Rapids Township area because there's a runway that ends there. FAA will not allow anything above 50 feet. So that's why your manufacturing facilities are in the Green Township versus Big Rapids Township. When I first started looking at Big Rapids Township, we were planning on a 10 gigawatt hour battery manufacturer, and that would have fit there, but the scope has changed. And with that change of scope, obviously now all those large buildings have to go in the Green Township area. With that, you really have to be cognizant of your traffic patterns for truck and pedestrian traffic. So since the manufacturing facilities are on the north side of 18 Mile Road, you have all your truck traffic coming off of 19 Mile Road exit, and then coming down to 20th to come into the facility from the north end. So all that road will be updated, as I understand, Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the grant money from the state goes towards that road construction, that infrastructure improvement. With that, now you have a lot of people coming in and out of the plant. So to intermix and intermingle truck traffic and foot traffic is a really bad idea. So anytime you design a plant, you have to have a separate entrance for your people, so they're not interfering with truck traffic. There's no happenstance accidents or anything. So that traffic will come in from the south side, which is on 18 Mile. So the pedestrian traffic will come in through 18 Mile, truck traffic coming down through 19 Mile. So that's how we segregate those. It might be a small issue, I'm thinking, for some of our people working there, because if they are coming on the freeway and they want to take exit 19, they still can, but you're going to be fighting with some trucks. And with that, also to be able to use the Big Rapids Township property for any truck parking or warehousing violates that standard of design. And that's why we can't use the BRT land at all, because we have to route our truck and pedestrian traffic properly to avoid any safety concerns. I'm very hopeful that some of our suppliers can utilize the Big Rapids Township Industrial Park. It's prime, it's ready for it. They don't have to have such tall buildings, and they can come up with their own traffic patterns. But for us, that's why we came up with this design.
Randy, the next question is for you. Where will the funding come from to make the necessary infrastructure improvements to support the plant?
Yeah, so as part of the incentive negotiation for this project, there was a recognition there was infrastructure needs identified. As time has gone on, we've continued to work with engineering firms to revise those estimates as inflation has taken hold, but we've identified conversations with the local engineering firms, conversations with the road commission, as Tim outlined, some of the road improvements. Green Township had identified some sewer upgrades that are needed, some intersection improvements. That's about just over $19 million of infrastructure improvements that are needed for a project of this scope and a site of this size. And we have a grant lined up with the state of Michigan that will cover those costs. Incidentally, because of the infrastructure work that's been done over the years, that is a fraction of the cost that you're seeing at other major sites being developed across the state and around the country. A lot of the infrastructure is already in place. And so now it's just making some accommodations to handle the scope and size of this project.
Jeremy, do you have anything else to add? Okay. This one, we're going to move on to the incentive questions and the non-disclosure agreements. So this is Randy or Jeremy. Can you explain why non-disclosure agreements are used in projects like this?
Sure. Randy, I'll go ahead and take a stab, and if you want to add anything, please feel free.
Sure.
But when we're vetting a project in an effort to be good fiduciaries of taxpayer money, there are a lot of sensitive materials that we require that are financial and proprietary in nature. And what this means is that if the materials were to get into the wrong hands, it could be detrimental to not only the company, but also the project. So additionally, we work with our local communities as they are vitally important throughout the vetting process. Having these non-disclosure agreements or NDAs allows everyone in those agreements full transparency while also keeping the sensitive information protected. What I do want to emphasize is that even though NDAs have been in place, at the time that this goes public for evaluation by respective board, whether it be Jim at the township board meetings or the Michigan Strategic Fund Board, which is my governing body on the state side, these projects have the same transparency as any other project does, including the evaluation at these public meetings.
Yeah, Mike, I might just add, it's somewhat the equivalent of when a city or a township goes into private session or closed session to discuss a land transaction or a legal agreement. And that's sort of the analogy for Jeremy's discussion. At the same time, this project has been engaged with the local officials for quite some time. The first call on this project came into Big Rapids Township. After several months of evaluation, it was recognized the site needed to grow. We engaged with Jim Chapman and his team, and they kept his board fully apprised throughout that process. And it's been widely public now for 7 months. We've been having a lot of open forum discussions. Big Rapids Township held a few. There's been a lot of public meetings both at the county and at Green Charter Township as well. So it's that moment of NDA has long since passed.
If I can add one last thing, in the private sector, in the automotive companies I worked for 38 years, I've signed hundreds of these. If you're going to work with multiple customers, they're in direct competition with each other, they require it. You must sign these because they don't want their trade secrets getting out. It's the innovation that in this country that drives capitalism. And if we have industrial espionage, for lack of a better word, because people aren't following their NDAs, we don't have innovation and we don't have capitalism. So NDAs really do fuel the American way.
If I could add just one more thing, because this is for Green Charter Township people. I have never been asked to sign an NDA. That subject was never been brought up to me or anybody else at Green Charter Township. When this project came to me and was explained to me. They asked me, Jim, can you keep it confidential for a little while while we work things out and see what happens? They took me at my word. I kept my word, but no one asked me to sign an NDA.
This question goes to Randy or Jeremy. Could you please provide a summary of other investments in Michigan from Chinese companies? And please highlight any community issues or impacts with these other projects, whether they be positive or negative.
Jeremy, I can start. We've done some research on this, and through the Dow Jones sort of research service that we subscribe to, there are 52 Chinese companies. I think Chuck referenced that earlier. 52 Chinese companies that are calling Michigan home today. That's the fourth highest concentration of any other country into the state of Michigan. From memory, it's Germany, Japan, Canada, China, and then France are the top 5 companies with investments, footholds in the state of Michigan. The largest is Nexteer, which bought a major GM facility in Saginaw. It's the largest employer in Saginaw. A couple larger ones in the greater Grand Rapids area would be J-Star, which opened up relatively recently in Cedar Springs, and Dicastal, which opened up a facility in Greenville. You've had obviously a pretty serious manufacturing challenge in the Greenville location. I don't know that anybody can ascribe that to the origin of the country. It's a manufacturing issue. J-Star's had no issues that we're aware of.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, bottom line is we continue to strive to do what we can to continue to move Michigan forward. The MEDC, we work with all sorts of companies, varying from small to big and everywhere in between. To get to the root of the question specifically, over the past 6 years, we've participated in 19 different projects across the state with 18 different companies that have relation to China. These 19 projects in total, nearly 2.7 billion of investment in the state that we call home. And of those 19 projects, we also work to create nearly 4,200 jobs, bringing those to our communities spread across the state.
This next question goes to Randy and Jeremy again, and it's a question asking to explain what the clawbacks are if the company will face if they don't meet the requirements. And there's a specific concern about the hiring, the number of people that's been specified, the 2,350. Can you explain those?
Sure. Yeah. So all of our tools that are leveraged by the Michigan Strategic Fund are performance-based. Ultimately, it boils down to if a company does not meet or exceed the agreed upon performance metrics, the company does not receive funding. In those situations where the company did perform and were paid some or all of the funds but regressed, there are repayment terms in place to protect our investment into the project. And to the latter part of that question, the performance-based nature of these funds is associated with new job creation and investment, not specifically to the wage. That said, the company does have to remain competitive in this job market with regard to wages and benefits. And if they're not, ultimately they won't meet the performance metrics.
Jeremy, I would just add they have to be Michigan residents as well to count towards that job creation number.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the next category, economic effects and community housing. This question goes to Chuck, Randy, or Jim. It's my understanding that there is a concern about the housing in Big Rapids, that the resources could be overwhelmed. This person says, I'm on the Housing Commission, and I know that we will be building 10 houses this year with 88 spaces total, that there are companies waiting in the wings to build other projects. What are the other resources that might be needed in the 10 years that it will take this project to reach its goal?
Yeah, Mike, I'll start on that if you don't mind. So we've talked already since this project was first announced back at the end of September of last year. That has triggered a lot of interest, a lot of developer interest into the greater Big Rapids community from developers across West Michigan, across the state, even some from Illinois and Indiana. And so we've been cataloging them, and they're all sort of waiting and watching to see, when this breaks ground, the timing of their construction, the timing of when they'll open. And then looking at the cadence of hiring, the questioner raises a great point in terms of the cadence. This isn't 2,300 jobs in an instant. This is 2,300 jobs over an 8 to 10-year time period. And so you take that in chunks. You also have to remember people are not going to instantly uproot their families and move to the area. Some people are going to commute in. And not all housing is going to be centered just in Big Rapids area. It's going to be spread throughout a 30-mile radius around the area. The right place, we have partnership agreements with some of the surrounding counties in Montcalm County, Newaygo County, Lake County in particular. We did housing, we had those relationships in place before we partnered up with Mecosta County. We've done housing analysis for those other counties, continue to work on that path, and I would expect us to want to do the same thing with you in Mecosta County. Better understanding what's the volume of housing units that are needed, what type of housing units are needed, and when they'd be needed. But ultimately, developers are interested. They see an opportunity with a project like this, and they will help build some homes on those subdivision lots that have sat idle, or they'll help build some multifamily if that's the need. But housing follows jobs and follows opportunity. It doesn't necessarily lead, and I think here we'll see an opportunity where housing will follow, and developers will do what developers do. They'll find an opportunity and provide some good housing stock to complement what's being done with the Housing Commission.
Maybe a very brief comment on my side, then I think Randy's comments stand for themselves, but we also looked at the labor study for the area. You have 6,500 people leaving Mecosta County every day to go to work somewhere else because the salaries aren't in the levels that they desire to stay here. I don't think we're going to be adding 2,300 houses. I think we're going to be employing a lot of people that are already here. A lot of the people, we have 14,000 students per year coming out of Ferris State University, and they don't stay. It's not because they hate us. It's just, there's just not a job here for them. So yeah, they'll have to have some additional housing for that, but they can get us, I hope, to just retain a lot of people that are already in the area.
Okay, good. This question is for Randy Warchuk. Please reflect on how the Gotion plant could be an opportunity to be pioneers in a new industry and attract the best and brightest engineers and innovators from all over the world.
I'll take a quick stab at that first, Randy, if you don't mind.
How about I go? Because I did this in Holland. I worked in Holland, Michigan when two battery plants came to the area simultaneously about 12 years ago. LG Chem out of Korea, Johnson Controls out of Milwaukee, both decided to put battery plants in that community at the same time. LG actually was quite similar in size and scope to this. They had committed to 3,000 jobs over a period of time. They are on pace to be at about 2,000 now with more time to go to hit their numbers. And a few things happened. First of all, it opened up a lot of opportunities for jobs, as Chuck just alluded to. So some great opportunities for people to advance their career and get on that economic climb, which is, frankly, why we do economic development, why communities want to grow. Second thing, it opened up opportunities for area companies of all types to start supplying a facility that size. A new industry with new technology, serving new markets means they need a new supply chain. And so that opened up a lot of opportunities for all kinds of businesses, whether it's metal stampers, whether it's machine shops, whether it's automated equipment companies, as well as all of the things, all the services that are needed to support a facility like this, whether it's simple things like catering or lawn services, building maintenance, you name it. So there's a lot of economic spin-off that occurs in and around that plant that becomes a bit of a magnet, economic magnet. The other interesting thing that happened there, and I expect will happen in Big Rapids, is it brought some extraordinary technology-minded people to the community and saw it in a way that they hadn't before. We had a number of battery experts from across the country coming through Holland, Michigan, looking to see what this industry was all about. We developed a partnership with a national lab, Argonne National Laboratory out of Chicago, to connect it up with Hope College and Michigan State, and had a really nice partnership there. I imagine that will open up similar opportunities for Ferris and bring some really bright minds to that campus. So it really did put that community on the map. And I think what's happening here with an anode and cathode battery components plant provides Big Rapids that similar kind of opportunity.
Chuck, your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to speak for Ferris a little bit since you're the moderator and you can't speak, Michael. Lithium-ion battery technology was under development for many, many years. Roughly 2001, Dr. Goodenough really perfected this, and he came up with a way to do this. He was recognized by what's called a Japanese award at that time. It's like their equivalent of a Nobel. And at that point, Asia took great notice to this, right? So China, Japan, Korea, they all started to make leapfrog monumental benefits in technology and innovation on this product. So what this is going to do is by bringing this kind of technology here with the product and the process, this will give Americans a chance to catch up. Okay, and those Americans locally are going to be out of Ferris, MSU, U of M, Grand Valley State University. You're going to see an awful lot of, I think, focus come into this area because traditionally Michigan is an automotive hub. We've kind of lost that in the past years, but we're trying to gain that back. And when you see these people getting these educations, I don't want to say we're going to leapfrog technology, but we're going to completely evolve it, right? It's going to continue to move forward. So I think the best minds will be drawn to these locations with the grants that I've already seen being distributed to some of these colleges. And I think that new center of expertise, right now they're calling the South, I'll call Southeast the battery belt. But the overall engineering side of things still up for grabs. So I think it'll bring the innovators, if we do it properly, we'll bring the innovators into this area, and Michigan will regain its position of automotive hub.
Good. This next question, Jim, I'm going to have you start, and then maybe Chuck can finish up the question. If I build this plant on farmland, let's build the plant in the city of Detroit, where we have the utilities, land, and labor available, and we'll serve the rural community.
Well, I think probably that's a good one for me to start. My family is 7 generations of farmers in this county. I can tell you this is not farmland. My grandfather, you couldn't raise your voice on. This is not farmland. There is one 60-acre section in this thing that one of the farmers makes hay on. That's it. Most of it hasn't seen a plow in God knows how many decades. On top of that, it was zoned industrial. It has been zoned industrial for 20 years. That's what the land was designed. Well, that's what this land is designated for. Many of them see this instead of industrial and zoning system. And it just matches what's coming. We are not.
Hey, Jim. I apologize for interrupting. I really didn't want to do that, but you're having a lot of reverb. So I think just a reminder to folks, please make sure that you're muted if you're not speaking at the time.
Okay, sorry about that. My voice is loud. But yeah, this is
there more than one mic in your vicinity, Jim?
no.
Maybe Mike, if you also mute while he's speaking.
All right, sounds like it's cleared itself up. My apologies. All right, real quick and simple. This isn't farmland. My family's 7 generations of farming in this county. This isn't farmland. This thing couldn't raise autumn olive on it. There is a 60-acre section that about 20 acres of it's cut for hay. That's pretty much it. But most of this land is and has been designated for industrial usage for the last 20 years. And this matches what that land was designed for.
Okay, I'll put in my 2 cents worth since my name was mentioned there, Michael.
Yes.
Everything that Jim said is in addition to when we brought this opportunity to the state of Michigan, and specifically when I called Big Rapids Township to begin with, this got on the calendar, if you will, of the SOAR committee. So this is the strategic committee set up by the state of Michigan to bring businesses in. As I understand, there were basically 4 businesses that kind of drove that whole SOAR conversation. We had, if I remember correctly, last fall, a meeting with that SOAR committee and all of their bipartisan members. the bipartisan members saw this as a huge opportunity to bring a good paying job standard into an area that sorely needs it. Maybe that was not a good pun. The area that definitely needs it. So after that agreement was made with that committee out of the Senate and House, I believe it was, that SOAR committee, bipartisan SOAR committee said, yes, let's put this there. We can help a lot of people in this area. Again, it was looked at, is this, we'll call it for lack of a better word, an impoverished area? Is this a development area? Can we make this really help the center of the state of Michigan? And that's why that bipartisan team at that time decided, yep, this is a good idea, let's move forward. So as you may have heard and read, the House of Representatives already moved this forward. The Senate, we've already spoken to them, we're waiting for their vote. But as Jim said, it's not necessarily tearing down agricultural land, it's building up a community.
Thank you. We're going to move to the green energy power grid questions. And Patrick, this question is for you. Gotion has stated that they would like 100% green energy to their plant. And I've heard some people say they don't understand how Gotion can install that many wind turbines or solar power panels on their property. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, thank you, Dean. First of all, I just want to be clear, and Chuck can probably clarify this too. Gotion is not going to be installing any solar panels or wind turbines on their property. Rather, they're working with us at Consumers Energy to supply their request for sustainable energy through the use of our existing infrastructure and our planned infrastructure of renewable energy. And since the grid is connected, we're able to dedicate those renewable resources that they are requesting from throughout sites all over Michigan. This will achieve their sustainability goals and help protect the planet, which is a goal we share.
And
Patrick, I'll just add to that just a little bit. So in our other facilities around the world, we definitely use solar panel collectors quite religiously. You can't do that in this site because if you point a bunch of mirrors up in the sky next to a runway, FAA does not approve of that. So you will not have wind towers, you will not have a solar farm here. It's not conducive to air traffic.
Patrick, the next question is for you as well. How will Gotion's power draw affect the homes in the area, the electrical supply to the homes in the area?
Yeah, thanks again. The proposed plant will not affect the power supply to our homes and businesses locally. This project wouldn't even be feasible unless we were confident with the infrastructure to ensure a high level of reliability for both Gotion and the entire Big Rapids region.
And this next question is kind of, fits right in with the last answer, but it's more pointed. Should we be concerned about blackouts?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. No, there is no need to be concerned about blackouts because of this proposed plant. And in fact, we will be upgrading our high voltage and low voltage lines to support the temporary and permanent needs of the project. These upgrades are going to serve the proposed project and will improve the reliability in this area by upgrading poles, lines, equipment, and even adding an additional substation.
And how is the Consumers Energy providing sustainable source power?
Yeah, so we're working directly with Gotion as we would with any other business to fulfill this request for renewable and sustainable energy. And as I stated before, they're going to be purchasing those energy credits through our existing and planned expansion of energy production sites in Michigan.
Good. I have a number of questions that don't really fall into any one of the buckets before, so we're just going to do our lightning round and then wrap up. This next question goes to Randy. Are there studies of other such plants that the public could evaluate before plans are implemented to build this plant?
Yeah, Mike, thank you. Yeah, this question caused us to go back and dig in deeper. We did find a handful of battery-related studies that can show both economic impact for community and statewide. So I think Jim mentioned earlier, we'll be answering all these questions in writing, and we'll provide a list of those types of studies here shortly.
And Tim, the next question is for you. What effect will the plant have on roads compared to the potash mine in Everett?
I can't speak to the potash mine. I don't even think that's started up. That's not a project right now that's working. But like Chuck's mentioned before, the heavy commercial traffic, which would be the concerning traffic, it drives a half-mile north and it's on state trunk lines. So they'll be mostly on the expressway and not affecting our local roads so much.
Okay. And do one last question here, and then we'll do our wrap-ups. Last question here is for Randy and Chuck, and I'm going to read it as is. Who solicited whom? Did Randy Thalen of the Right Place contact his cousin Chuck Thalen of Gotion, or the other way around?
Yeah, so we've mentioned this many, many, many times, Mike, but Chuck and I did discover that we're cousins, distant cousins. My first call on this project was from Bill Stanek at Big Rapids Township. Within days, we had a conference call with Chuck, and we spent probably the first 5 minutes, as you might imagine, trying to figure out who each other was, how we might be related, and we couldn't figure that out. I went to my mom, who's the authority on this, and after about a month of digging, she discovered that we're second cousins. We had never met before. I've never seen Chuck at a family reunion or potluck. Brent Case on my team, who's done a marvelous job with this project, has really run point for us just to try to keep any concerns of that conflict at ease or at bay. But I assure you, there's no conflict, there's no arrangement, there's no nothing. It's just a fluke. It's just a fluke.
I'll add a little limerick to that. I smiled because I originally contacted Big Rapids Township because, as I mentioned, we planned on a 10 gigawatt hour facility and it would fit there. After a bit of conversation, he said, I need to bring in the MEDC in the Right Place. I'd never heard of the Right Place before. And then when I got on the phone and Brent introduced his boss, Randy Thalen, I said, you got to be kidding me, another Thalen. It took us quite a while to determine even if we've ever met. And the answer was no. I've never seen him. I've never met him until the first time I think we met was downtown Grand Rapids many months after, because we've seen each other on the phone calls, but never really met in person. So my parents are no longer living. I could not go to that resource, so I have to trust Randy's mother's input to say that we are related somehow. But we never knew each other before this.
Okay, thank you.
But we do have a father with the same name, so that was very ironic. That's why I smiled.
So we have gone through a bunch of questions tonight and hopefully answered many of the concerns that have been raised. As has been stated, a written response will be made to all the questions. So if we didn't get to all of your questions tonight, they will be responded to in writing. Chuck, I'd like to go to you and have you do some closing statements for us, and then Jim will make a final statement.
Yeah, give me 1 second, if you will. Okay, sorry about that. My wife just got home. Yeah, so in conclusion, I just want to make some words here. I think we've all on the panel tried to address these questions like that ceiling fan to the best of our ability. I urge you to fact check everybody that's listening that might still be curious. I urge you to do a fact check of everything that we've said, and always ask questions of those who make unbelievable claims, because we've seen a lot of that in the press lately in the political arena. Seek to understand the facts and make your own conclusion. That's all we can ask. I think that the professional protesters have definitely muddied the waters a little bit to create some fear on our great community here. I just urge you, don't fall for the fear mongering, because usually, like I said, fear is an incompetent teacher. And just decide for yourself if you believe the facts presented here by everybody on this board. I think, as Bill Pink's very adeptly stated in a YouTube video that he put out, if you want the real information, come to the source. And we are the source. And we've tried to answer this as truthfully and pragmatically as possible. We live in a world where the mainstream media loves to create a great divide between people. because it sells advertising time. Our previous president called this out as fake news a number of years back, and we're seeing a degree of fake news today, and that's been surrounding this project. So I encourage you, uncover the facts on your own. I fully expect that tomorrow the professional protesters will take whatever we said and try to twist it, but hopefully you know that you heard it from us directly. In summary, there are 3 points as we started with: the communism scare. I have never, ever witnessed any type of activity in this company that suggests that the Chinese government runs the company. It's a multinational, publicly traded company on 2 different continents, or excuse me, 2 different countries, I should say. There is no publicly held part of this company with the CCP. Environmentally, hopefully you heard enough testimony today. The environmental codes are very important to us. I've been probably about an 18-year member of Pheasants Forever. I've done an awful lot of projects to improve the habitat. I'm not going to go through all that trouble in my life just to wreck it. Okay? And the way of life scare, yes, you should be afraid. This will be a way of life change in Mecosta County. We will have the opportunity to give 2,300 strangers a chance to earn a salary that's not today offered in a lot of areas of this community. 2,350 people will gain financial stability if this goes forward. And that's all I want. That's all I ever wanted in the first place. So thank you all so much for spending a very long time listening to us go on and on. I sincerely hope this helps you with the information and you can make an informed decision. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Chuck. And Jim, I'm going to hand control back over to you and let you close us out.
I can tell everybody it works better if I turn the mic on. Okay, so I had a really cool closing, all designed, and then Chuck Thalen stole it all. So I will just reiterate what he said, fact, not fear mongering. Folks, I hope we wanted to bring you the facts. I hope we brought you some facts. I hope it gave you some opportunity to do some thinking. I do want to thank everybody. What one person did not see here is retired Director Kevin Courtney. Director Courtney had originally agreed to be the moderator on the for this. Unfortunately, there was some technical difficulties in getting him up and going, and that didn't happen. And Dean Staley was kind enough to step in. I won't say at the last minute because I think maybe he had about 30 seconds warning. But he did an excellent job, and thank you. Thank you to all the board members. Not only thank you from me, but thank you from the people of Green Township. And I appreciate all your time and your efforts. So with that, we will tell everyone good night. Go ahead and shut her down, I guess.